Last spring, the average American gardener spent $847 on bagged soil. Read that again. $847 on dirt. Something that has literally been beneath your feet, forming naturally, recycling itself, feeding civilizations for 10,000 years before a single corporation figured out how to put it in a plastic bag and charge you for it season after season after season. Here is what the garden center does not tell you when you load that cart. That premium potting mix sitting in the bright-colored bag. Independent lab tests from the Rodale Institute found that up to 60% of commercial bagged soils contain virtually zero living microbial activity by the time they reach the shelf. You are not buying soil. You are buying the ghost of soil, a dead substrate dressed up with synthetic nutrients designed to keep your plants just alive, enough to make you come back and buy more next year. I used to do the same thing. Every spring, 50 bags. Every fall, the same tired plants, the same disappointing yields. Then I started digging. Not in the garden, but into the science. And what I found made me genuinely angry. What they have been hiding from you is not complicated. It is actually ancient. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Before Home Depot existed, before Miracle-Gro ran its first advertisement, before anyone thought to slice open a plastic bag and call it garden ready, farmers fed entire continents with soil they never once purchased. The Roman agricultural writer Columella documented in 65 AD that Roman farmers composted kitchen scraps, animal manure, and green plant material directly into their fields. The result was soil so productive that a single acre could sustain a family of 4 through a full calendar year. For roughly 10,000 years, that knowledge passed from generation to generation, like an inheritance more valuable than the land itself. Farmers in China's Yangtze River Delta maintained the same plots continuously for over 4,000 years without a single bag of imported amendment. A fact that American agronomist F. H. King documented with visible astonishment in his 1911 book, Farmers of 40 Centuries. Then the 1940s arrived. The synthetic fertilizer industry, built on surplus nitrogen technology from World War II munitions factories, needed a peacetime market. What followed was one of the most successful rebranding campaigns in agricultural history. The systematic replacement of biological soil knowledge with chemical dependency. By 1970, the bagged soil and amendment market in the United States alone was worth $200 million. Today, that number sits at $4.2 billion annually, according to the Garden Media Group's 2023 industry report. Someone built a very comfortable business on top of your forgetting. Here is where it gets remarkable. Underneath a single healthy square foot of living garden soil, scientists at the University of California, Davis have identified over 1 billion individual bacteria, approximately 3 miles of fungal threads, and somewhere between 10 and 50,000 distinct species of microorganisms, all working in a system of biological exchange, so sophisticated that we still do not fully understand it. That is not poetry. That is a 2019 peer-reviewed count published in the journal Applied Soil Ecology. The central mechanism is called the soil food web. Plants are not passive recipients of nutrition. They are active traders. Through their root systems, plants leak somewhere between 20 and 40% of the sugars they produce through photosynthesis directly into the surrounding soil, not by accident, by design. Those sugar secretions, called exudates, are essentially a currency, a deliberate payment to the microbial community living at the root zone. In exchange, bacteria and fungi break down minerals locked inside soil particles and deliver them back to the plant in bioavailable form. Nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, zinc, The entire nutritional profile a plant needs, sourced and delivered by biology, not by a bag. The organism that makes this transaction most visible is mycorrhizal fungi. These microscopic threads attach directly to plant roots and extend the plant's reach anywhere from 10 to 1,000 times beyond what the root alone could access. A 2020 study from the University of Toronto found that plants connected to healthy mycorrhizal networks absorbed up to 80% more phosphorus than plants grown in sterilized commercial media. 80%. That is not a marginal difference. That is the difference between a plant that survives and a plant that thrives. Now open that bag of premium potting mix. The sterilization process used to give it that clean, uniform texture necessary for mass production and shelf stability kills virtually everything described above. The mycorrhizal fungi, gone. The bacterial colonies, gone. The food web, collapsed. What remains is a physically acceptable growing medium with the biological intelligence of concrete. This is not an accident of manufacturing. Sterile soil creates dependent plants. Dependent plants create repeat customers. And repeat customers are worth $4.2 billion a year. The good news, and there is very good news, is that biology does not care about market share. Before I tell you exactly how to build the most alive soil you have ever grown in, I want to be honest with you about something. Because this channel will not sell you certainty it cannot back up. Making your own soil is not a guaranteed shortcut. The process takes time, and if you live in an urban apartment with a 4-square-foot balcony, the full system I am about to describe will need to be scaled and adapted. Compost quality varies depending on what you put in. Homemade soil mixes can carry weed seeds, pathogens, or pH imbalances if the process is rushed. A 2021 extension report from Oregon State University noted that improperly managed home compost can temporarily spike ammonia levels high enough to damage seedling roots. These are real limitations, and anyone telling you homemade soil is always superior to everything commercial is oversimplifying a genuinely complex biological system. That said, what is printed on the label of commercial bagged soil deserves equal scrutiny. Most premium mixes list peat moss as their primary ingredient. Peat moss is harvested from ancient bogs that took over 10,000 years to form and sequester enormous volumes of carbon. The United Kingdom's Royal Horticultural Society confirmed in 2022 that peat extraction releases approximately 400,000 tons of CO2 annually in Britain alone. The European Union has moved to ban amateur peat use entirely by 2026. Yet American garden centers still sell it by the millions of bags every single spring, with no warning on the packaging. There is also the question of what is not listed. A 2018 investigation by the Ecology Center in Berkeley, California, tested 36 commercial potting soils and found synthetic wetting agents, unknown polymer compounds, and in several cases, detectable levels of heavy metals including lead and arsenic. You are not buying dirt. You are buying a product. And products have ingredients that do not always make it to the label. So here is what you are going to do instead. And I mean starting this weekend, with materials most of you already have access to, for free or close to it. The foundation of living homemade soil comes down to 3 elements working together: carbon, nitrogen, and biological inoculant. Think of it as the structural frame, the fuel, and the engine. You need all 3, and the ratio matters more than the individual ingredients. The target is roughly 3 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen by volume. Carbon sources are your dried leaves, cardboard torn into fist-sized pieces, wood chips, or straw. Nitrogen sources are fresh grass clippings, kitchen vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, or if you have access to it, aged animal manure, from chickens or rabbits. Not fresh, always aged at least 60 days. Layer these two, alternating into a pile, or a simple bin, no smaller than 3 feet by 3 feet. That minimum mass is not arbitrary. It is the threshold at which the pile generates enough internal heat, between 130 and 160 degrees Fahrenheit, to kill weed seeds and pathogens while accelerating microbial activity. Cornell University's composting program has documented this thermal process extensively since the 1950s. Turn the pile every 7 to 10 days to introduce oxygen, because the bacteria doing the heaviest decomposition work are aerobic. They suffocate without airflow. After 60 to 90 days, depending on your climate, what you have is finished compost. Dark, crumbly, smelling like forest floor after rain. At that point, you build your final soil mix. 40% finished compost, 40% topsoil, or garden earth, and 20% coarse perlite, or rice hull ash, for drainage and aeration. The biological inoculant step is where most guides stop short. Take a single shovelful of soil from the most productive corner of any established garden nearby, a neighbor's bed, a community plot, a forest edge, and mix it directly into your finished blend. That one shovel carries billions of locally adapted microorganisms that no commercial product can replicate because they evolved specifically for your region's climate, your water, your conditions. That is not a folk remedy. That is applied microbiology. And it costs nothing. Building great soil once is not the goal. The goal is building a system that improves itself every single season without you starting over, without you spending $1 at the garden center in March. The mechanism that makes this possible is called continuous biological feeding. After your plants are in the ground, top dress the surface with ½ an inch of finished compost every 4 to 6 weeks through the growing season. Do not dig it in. Leave it on the surface and let rainfall and soil organisms pull it downward naturally. This mimics exactly what a forest floor does without any human intervention. Layers of organic material perpetually decomposing from the top down, perpetually feeding the root zone from below. Cover your soil. A bare soil surface exposed to direct sunlight loses moisture rapidly and degrades its microbial population within days, according to research published by the Rodale Institute in 2020. 2 to 3 inches of straw, wood chip mulch, or even dried leaves placed around your plants keeps soil temperature stable, retains moisture, and gives surface-dwelling organisms the dark, humid environment they need to thrive. Finally, never pull spent plants out by the root at season's end. Cut them at the soil line instead. The root system left behind decomposes in place, feeding the soil food web through winter and leaving physical channels that improve drainage and aeration for next spring's planting. Your soil should be measurably richer, darker, and more productive each year than the last. If it is not, the system is missing a piece. And that is a problem worth solving, not a reason to go back to the bag. Every time you share this video, you are not doing me a favor. You are doing something that actually costs $1 billion industry a customer. That is not an exaggeration. The bagged soil market runs entirely on the assumption that you do not know what you just learned in the last 10 minutes. The moment that knowledge spreads to one more person, one more household starts pulling out of that cycle permanently. If this is the kind of information you want more of, the science they do not put on the label, the techniques that existed long before the industry that replaced them, then subscribe. Not because this channel needs the numbers, but because what gets built here, slowly, video by video, is a community of people who have decided that growing food should not require a corporate middleman, standing between them and the ground beneath their feet. The soil has always known how to do this. We just forgot, and now we remember.